we're going to go ahead and take a break from our model and slow things down a bit and cover a topic that a lot of people have questions about, and that topic is, which wizard should I use? You may not have this question, but eventually someone's going to ask whether or not you should use the SD wizard or the DD wizard. Now, some people should always use the SD wizard, and some people should only use the DD wizard. Of course, if you know enough about this to disagree, then this rule doesn't apply to you. Let's go ahead and open eQUEST. We're going to create a new project via the wizard, and we're going to start with the SD wizard. Of course, the main difference that people point out is that the SD wizard can only have one shell. You can see that right here. And the DD wizard can have multiple shells, which you can see the bottom here is shell 1, and stacked on top of that is shell 2. If we go ahead and hit the SD wizard, and we'll just leave the complete defaults, it will get rid of the utility rate, leave the simplified schedules. Let's go ahead and click the jurisdiction set to other. And if we go to the next screen, the advantage to the SD wizard is that it's completely linear. Fill out a screen, go to the next screen and continue, and all the screens that you are required to fill out will either be disabled or enabled based on the previous screens. What this means is that somebody with very little experience can make an energy model that will actually run and produce results. Of course, the validity of those results is up to the experience of the person, but even a rather inexperienced person can use the SD wizard because of the linear properties of the interface. If we go ahead and click Finish, this renders really quickly.